Hi there, my name is Philip Ideson. I want to welcome you to the Art of Procurement podcast, the podcast that helps you, a forward-thinking procurement professional, position yourself and your team to proactively take advantage of the revolution that's taking place in procurement today. By interviewing industry trailblazers and sharing insights from our own experiences, my team and I pull back the curtain and shine a light on the strategies, tactics, and tools that procurement teams are using to elevate their impact. And today on the show, I'm joined by Patrick Foelck. Now, Patrick is the head of strategy and transformation and the head of insights and enablement at Roche, the $32 billion revenue global pharmaceutical company headquartered in Switzerland. Now, I enjoyed my conversation with Patrick a lot. This was a great conversation. Over the years, we've advocated here at Art of Procurement for transformational change in procurement. We've done that a lot. And we wrote a long white paper all the way back, I think it was 2019. It was called Procurement Inc. That paper called for procurement teams to really focus on being a business within a business, to look at how we could compel stakeholders to want to engage with procurement. And the journey that Roche has been undertaking the past few years really embodies those principles. As Patrick says in our discussion, let's make stakeholders love us. So of course, doing that is a lot easier said than done. And so today we walk through how Roche is actually putting that into practice. Really good conversation. Let's go straight into it, where I start by asking Patrick if he found procurement or if procurement found him.
I love that question, Phil, and I doubt that many actually respond, I found procurement. So I'm one correct. Of the likely 95 or 98% of people who say procurement found me. Yes, I was ready to go into generic consulting firm with big companies. And then I got a call from a headhunter suggesting, hey, I've got an opportunity with a small boutique consulting firm focusing on procurement. Mm-hmm. I was like, what do they do? Procurement? Mm-hmm. What even is procurement? I did something related to supply chain during my time at university, but there was no focus on procurement, no idea what procurement was. And I said, well, why not? Smaller company, boutique, startup style. And I said, well, let's go, let's try. And a couple of months later, I started with them, and I've stayed in consulting, procurement, not with this company, but then moved on to Deloitte for 10 years. But basically, procurement supply chain was my bread and butter for 14 years. So it found me, and I got super excited about it and stayed for a long time and continue to be in procurement. So now on the industry side, working with Roche on procurement topics.
Can you talk a little bit about what your current role is at Roche?
Yeah, so I've been through a number of roles, but throughout my career here, so now 6 years, I've been leading our transformation and strategy, so basically defining where we are going as a procurement function. And I also look after, in my current role, look after our enablement capabilities, so everything that enables procurement and the business. Which has grown significantly. So typically when you look at enablement or excellence functions in procurement, I think they solely look at sort of enabling the procurement organization.
Yeah.
We, I think, have grown out of this, which is part of our strategy. And we actually enable procurement and the business. And the end is super important because we think procurement has lots of data, capabilities, insights that should enable the business to make better decisions. So as part of enablement for us is not only the traditional analytics stuff and other elements, but I look after, for example, contracting and contracting for much more than just third-party and procurement contracts. I look after sustainability. We own all of the Scope 3 scope for us, which is super exciting, deeply integrated into our risk capabilities and risk functions. Many of the things that we do to enable the business with procurement capabilities and processes and services. And I'm also looking after, as part of my role, after something that I would define, hopefully, is becoming the future of procurement, where we still do, as every good procurement organization, sourcing and category management. But a lot of the transactions, a lot of the activities as part of this for us are automated and digitized. And we'll come back to this later. And that helped us to invest in what we call in insights and solutions capability. And that capability tries to not connect demand to supply, which is sort of our traditional scope in procurement, but we try to go deeper beyond the demand, understand the problem, and then try to find a solution by partnering with internal functions, but also external partners to actually offer a solution to the underlying problem. And that team is growing super fast because it delivers actually much more than what I call just an answer. Here's a supplier, or here's a negotiated price. It actually delivers a solution to the problem. And the business is starting to find this super attractive because they can talk to us about much more than just the price. And that's sort of the team that I look after, Insight Solutions and Enablement.
That's more, and there's a couple of questions I want to ask to follow off on what you just said, but that sounds like very much more a consultative approach. So you kind of got a consulting and an advisory capability within procurement that's taking that step back. And as you say, looking at how can you solve challenges or take advantages of opportunities by leveraging supply markets, but taking a more kind of big picture view versus here's a contract to negotiate, here's another one to negotiate, or even here's a collection of contracts that we're all going to roll under a category strategy. It's going kind of a level deeper than category management as well.
Absolutely does, and maybe it brings me back also to what almost got me out of procurement, but also kept me loving procurement. Is I think we are so much more. We are so far more than the 5-6 step sourcing process, negotiations, category management, some SRM, and whatever else we come up with to justify our existence. And I think this has piqued my interest almost from day one in procurement. When I started with the boutique consulting firm, and we're working on lots of sourcing engagements, cost out programs, everything, I felt there's more. There must be more than running this singular one-dimensional process and chasing this savings one-dimensional outcome. And I think that's also our future. And if we don't get out of it, or if we don't build on it, procurement to an extent will be dead or replaced by technology or by an external party. So when we went through our change here at Roche, we felt we need to not only make procurement more efficient and effective in terms of its core, so deliver more with less, but also use some of the money and capacity we are freeing up to invest into something else. We felt the business wants something else, so there's an opportunity. And we as procurement leaders here, we felt we must do something else for the sake of procurement. And that's when we started to invest in various capabilities. Yes, they are more consulting-like. The people we hire or the people we have employed or retrained are sort of more leveraging a consulting style approach, bring an open mindset, but also I really believe procurement has a lot of the capability we need for this type of work. And I always draw the analogy, when you, in a room of procurement people, when you ask them to introduce themselves, I bet a lot of money they introduce themselves talking about, oh, I work in this category. I've done so many negotiations. I have experience in this region for this type of supplier or whatever. They talk the procurement lingo and introduce themselves this way. By doing so, I think they limit themselves to, you can only do that. No one talks about the capability, and no one believes in leveraging that capability. And I think that's what we do. We moved on from categories and sourcing and this and that in terms of role title, in terms of development, in terms of clustering people, to what's the capability you have, what do you want to do, and how can we leverage this in our way of working, our operating model, in the value we deliver.
So let's talk a little bit about the journey. But before I just go into the journey a little bit, you referenced kind of some ideas on the future of procurement. But when you get your crystal ball out and you look 5-10 years into the future, kind of what's the North Star? What's driving your vision for the operational transformation based on where you believe that procurement is going?
Yeah. And my personal vision and sort of hope for procurement is very closely connected to what we are driving here. And we've branded this future as next generation procurement, where we believe we still do what a good procurement function should do: the sourcing, the negotiation, the supplier management, to an extent the category management, but do this far better, and better in terms of sort of user-friendly, aligned to business needs, and highly automated and digitized. So the procurement core service is becoming, to an extent, a self-service functionality for the business. They consume either contracts or content, or like we buy our plane tickets now online, or we buy so much through an app on the phone. So the core service is highly digitized, highly automated, super efficient, and extremely user-friendly. Get out of this procurement for procurement nonsense that no one likes and no one wants to do. Use that capacity and capability to invest in a lot of incremental value areas. For us, this is sustainability, growing extremely fast in terms of effort we are investing, in the people we are deploying, and in terms of responsibility we are getting. Invest in true supplier and risk management, beyond what we branded ourselves in the past with SRM. Invest in the solutions, finding sort of transformations related to the solutions, and sort of the services delivery related to this. I'll come back to this in a second. And I think align the value, the outcomes you deliver, much more to what the business or even the shareholders want. Yeah, this one-dimensional savings benefit that we've been sort of singing and praising will not get us far. So that sort of is the future for me, and what we are pursuing. So highly digitized, automated core, the good old traditional stuff still there, but again, highly self-service automation, digitization, and reinvest capacity, capability in many sort of capabilities we have in our core, but we're not leveraging to provide a much broader and much more enlarged, enhanced value proposition back to the business around the number of offerings I mentioned.
How did you think about sequencing that? So, for example, you talked about digitizing and automating and creating this self-service environment, which 100% I believe is the future of procurement. That we, I've got a real pet peeve about the idea of spend under management, for example, as a metric, because that suggests that we as procurement are managing things. We should be enabling things and then supporting the business in very specific areas where you can actually drive competitive advantage versus your competitors, and let them do the rest of the things on their own, just within some of these guardrails. So as you're thinking about the journey of transformation, were there certain areas where you thought, you know what, the low-hanging fruit for digitization, let's focus there? Or kind of how did you think about that?
Yeah. And I think I have to admit, we did a bit trial and error, because we were misled by some of the traditional KPIs you just mentioned. And that's where the trial and error came in. So for example, we felt if we want the business to buy goods and services more from a self-service sort of angle, buying channel perspective, we just need to enable them to do so. So let's use our technology and use the well-known guided buying idea and just pump in tons and tons of content into our system. So from a spend under management perspective, we were chest bumping and high-fiving each other because it was amazing.
Everything's now in guided buying.
Everything's there. Guys, what do you want? Feedback from the business was, you made our life so much more horrible and difficult, because instead of the 2-3 catalogs where the business went to buy, they now had hundreds.
Yeah.
And the guided buying idea is not really guided buying. It didn't work because you have to click into every catalog, check out. There's no way to search across, or not easy at least. The system is very static and old. Anyway, so we decide, and lots of other ideas and examples. So what we did is we put ourselves into the shoes of the user, of the business, and thought about how do they want to engage with us? How do they want to use us? And how do we get them to do what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in Roche, but I bet many other companies, procurement doesn't have this top-down mandate to say, business, you buy this from there and no comment, no nothing, period. So without the mandate, without the push and force from the top, which is never a good idea anyway, we wanted to make them love us. And once they love us, we can do what we think is right to an extent. So we had to attract them to our technology, attract them to our content, and through that, then deliver our, I guess, outcomes. And that's where the whole pivot in terms of the lessons learned and I guess the trial and error then started. That a lot of the concepts, a lot of the KPIs, a lot of the thinking that we used to, I guess, apply and chase for so many years in procurement will not work, will not get us into the future that we all want and that we describe here as next gen. So to continue the content example, we then went to market and scouted the market for a true marketplace solution.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Amazon holy grail solution for procurement, basically. We all have when we shop online for ourselves. We couldn't find it. And I think it didn't exist at the time. And then we started to engage a startup that was willing to truly co-create this with us.
Mm-hmm.
And within 18 months, we built a marketplace product that now allows the business, and it's absolutely true, shop even better than how we shop on Amazon. So the item description is brilliant. Pictures there, 3 clicks, and you get to the purchase requisition PO out. It allows me to, as procurement, to have the ability to manipulate search results, rank certain outcomes at the top, or move certain suppliers to the side. It allows the supplier to engage with us, run campaigns. So I have now got a solution that actually creates not only significant financial benefits for us, because I can push my category strategy through, the business actually buys the cheapest item.
Yeah.
It doesn't only excite the business from a, wow, this is amazing to use. It has also got the whole process so much faster and took out all the processing effort and pain for procurement, end of the year, reconfirming content, price lists, everything. So we build a solution with a startup that really fits our needs and is something that everyone is happy to use, supplier, procurement, and the business. And that's, I think, really important in our journey, that we sort of looked at this from a different angle, rather than saying, oh no, guided buying, procurement terms, procurement mandate, and ask CFO for stronger policies to push. No, it's not going to work.
How much did you involve stakeholders in the building of that platform to make sure that it was fit for purpose for them, as opposed to what we're sometimes guilty of doing, as you say, is here you go, business, this is our new wonderful solution that you're going to use. This is how to use it.
At every stage, deeply involved. So requirements gathering, we went and really wanted to understand, what are you after? Why don't you like our hundreds of catalogs? What is it that makes you cringe when you see the process? We then, every stage of the development journey, had sort of experience labs that we ran with the business. We made them part of our communication, so fully almost like integrated into the process.
Now you talked a little bit about how procurement is structured or segmented in terms of capabilities. You talked about business partnering, delivery, and then insights and enablement. We touched on insights and enablement a little bit, but can you talk a little bit about kind of how, from a operating model, everything kind of fits together? Yeah,
and I think it's worth mentioning, we've been through a 4 to 5 year journey. When I joined, procurement was rather decentralized. Multiple procurement organizations reporting into different parts of the organization overall, various procurement leaders, things done very differently, even though we use the same suppliers. And in the first step, we sort of centralized and globalized procurement and organized procurement very traditional category management focused organization with regional operations, the good old story, and very saving savvy. We committed to a performance uplift as part of this change step and a cost out, so operating cost out. In the second step, because we wanted to go further, we had a dream about this next generation procurement, and also the organization was interested in more than just savings and procurement, like negotiations. We sort of evolved the organization into the operating model you just mentioned. So we have 3 capability chapters, which are the home to our people. That's the passport they carry.
Yeah.
So a business partnering, what we call customer excellence chapter, people who engage with the business, translate business needs strategies into procurement. They sit on all these leadership committees and teams across the business, up to the top. But they also, and that's super important, they sell procurement capabilities. They sell procurement work, our solutions, our ideas, and they also engage the business in terms of, for example, digital change efforts. Super critical team. Then we have our delivery organization, which is basically core procurement, the category management, the sourcing. They are organized in a more flexible way. So we don't have the procurement sourcing manager for fleet in Europe focusing on the UK, doing nothing else, and trying to convince procurement leadership that it needs 1 FTE to do this every year, even though we only run tenders every 5 to 10 years. Right? So we took that sort of super siloed traditional procurement approach away and align people more to families or larger areas of spend. And we also focus less on deep category expertise, more on great procurement capability. So we have a few category experts, a few category managers for the bigger areas who truly are the experts and the greatest people we could find internally in the market. And then just great procurement people who can flex from one category to another. And they also operate very flexibly. So they move on project to project. What's also very important, so this team, if I look at the overall transformation journey we've been through, has reduced the most. So procurement in the past did sourcing, category management, core procurement, and was X hundred people. We're now doing the same, but with half the team size. And that's where also the digitization, automation comes in. So this team is less focused on, let me buy the $10,000 special share for the conference room. They focus on the big stuff, on the real strategic stuff that's relevant. And the rest, we've invested in content, self-service tool, marketplace stuff, as I mentioned earlier, that supports that team. And the target is by next year, technology, automation, self-service addresses 90+% of transaction, which ultimately frees that team up to truly focus on the real important strategic stuff. The third chapter I already talked about, insights enablement, and the solutions team that then drives many other sort of solutions outcomes for the business. And just to give you one example to make this a bit more, clear or give you guys a bit of a picture on what we mean with solutions. So the team has been involved in a number of great projects across Roche. And one that I think illustrates this nicely. Obviously, every business wants to grow. Roche wants to grow as well. A lot of the stuff that we do, medicines, drugs, start in a lab. And unfortunately, about 95% what at some point starts in that lab never makes it to the patient because it just fails. So in order to grow the business, you need to invest significantly in the upfront of our process. So Roche made a commitment to grow. Business came to procurement and finance, said, guys, we need more labs, buildings, machines, people, assets, everything. And procurement is deeply integrated as finance. We said, guys, it's tough from a budget perspective. Let's look at other ways to do this. And that's where we then partner with the business on looking for solutions like automation, robotics, some ways to also use external parties on parts of the process, or running asset utilization initiatives, so Internet of Things, stuff like this. We are bringing and working on with the business in partnership, and that's very different to say, yes, no problem, let's just go and squeeze the suppliers, or use the incremental money or the volume or the spend to get a better price. It's the yes and. We can do this, we can get a better price, but actually, let's think about whether we need all this. If we help you to consume less, or to have more access to data that tells you these labs are not used on a Friday morning or Friday afternoon. I'm making this up. So this is a very different project.
And driving more flexibility through the the drug discovery process and the trial process, and the more speed that you can bring to that process through, flexible partners, then, as a bigger picture, you now have greater capability to test and trial and spend more resource on discovery, which is far more impactful on the business than saving 5% on some lab supplies.
Absolutely. And that's why I think our value and measure of success is, yes, savings and cash, core fundamental outcomes of procurement, but even more important is efficiency, speed, and the core business values that we contribute to directly.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to just go very briefly back to when you were talking about kind of the delivery organization, and it's very interesting what you're talking about from a category management perspective, and having more flexible resources who are less experts in their individual categories, but more kind of, they can bring their expertise to a variety of different categories. Mm-hmm. How do you sell that to the business? One of the value proposition, let's say, that we've sold of category management is, well, we're experts in what we buy. However, I think apart from the few that you called out that truly are experts, in the vast majority of cases, the stakeholder, the budget owner, is still more of an expert than a buyer will ever be. We're just trying to help them see things differently or bring new information to them. So how do you kind of position the role of those resources to the business when they aren't necessarily experts in their area of spend or in the projects that they're working on?
I believe category management is a term, it's a theory developed to justify procurement and to justify that we are more than just good negotiators. It is super relevant in some specific categories where the business really needs the expertise that we bring from a market supplier perspective. But as you say, absolutely right. In many other categories, the business, the user is the expert. If think about it, if you want to buy a new car and someone comes along and tells you, oh, no, you need this car, and no, red, no, you need blue, right? And a sports car, forget it, you need a van. How would you feel? It doesn't feel good. So we approach this question differently. So we looked at our entire spend against the number of transactions in supplier, this Pareto principle, this idea. And we identified there are few suppliers in the hundreds or in the thousands of transactions that account for a large percentage of the spend, 60+%. And that's where we felt, that's where the business, I think, needs support. That's where the business, I guess, also can use us from a supplier management perspective, market insights, whatever they require. But that's where we need to invest in the best and brightest people. That's where the delivery organization really needs to excel.
Yeah.
Then there is the contrary, the 10,000s of suppliers and 100,000s of transactions, which account for a fraction of the spend, but account for the vast majority of our processing cost and the pain for the business. Here, the one thing that matters is speed and zero effort.
Yeah.
Where we've invested in tail solutions that, again, makes it super easy for the business to buy. Every purchase is compliant and costs us almost nothing. That's the investment we have made, and that's the solution we built. The most difficult stuff is in the middle, where you have many transactions, many suppliers, and every transaction, every supplier accounts for quite a significant amount of spend. And that's where we invested in automation or self-service, so marketplace, content buying, self-service sourcing. And we also invested in some of our sourcing folks who can jump on opportunities quickly and get this done super quickly.
Yeah.
And we've invested in, with a partner, a sourcing as a service capability.
Yeah.
So when our reduced organization is not able to handle it, it doesn't drop off the table. We can basically out-task this within an hour to someone else to do it. And this is the approach we took, and we aligned this curve and those solutions against our buying channels. So we have 5 buying channels where everything, every purchase get through. Number 1 is the marketplace solution or marketplaces. So content buying, but highly automated self-service. Then it's tail. 3rd is buying against existing contracts. So contract call-offs through our system. 4 is self-service sourcing, basically, where the business can use a simple platform to buy against approved suppliers, can tender up to a lot of money themselves. And number 5, which we're trying to reduce as much as possible and make super ugly and difficult, is the free text form, free text orders. And that's sort of the philosophy. It's not the category management, yes or no, good or bad. It's sort of the different angle we take to this. Where is it needed? Where does the business want it? Rather than us pushing it and say, look how great we are here, all the 500, the army of category managers.
What kind of changes are not necessarily roadblocks, but there's a big change management initiative that obviously has accompanied this journey that you've been on internally as well, because sometimes the hardest thing for, career procurement professionals like we both are, is to be thinking about things in a different way than perhaps what we have been taught is the way that you do procurement. So how much effort has needed to go into kind of change management so that the team kind of see this different approach to procurement and start thinking about, I need different skill sets. The traditional, I always talk about the traditional procurement skill set being very commoditized now. That's not where you're going to grow your career, but that requires different skills. What's that journey looked like internally?
It was a difficult and tough journey. I think what ultimately drove all of us, leadership team and sort of colleagues and people in procurement, was the excitement about the future and the ability to contribute very differently to the success of the company and ultimately impacting sort of the patient journey. And that's, I think, a great purpose that we have. So curing and helping patients. And with that idea and that concept in mind, people were very open to explore and offering new development journeys. So instead of sourcing manager, senior sourcing manager, junior category manager, senior category manager in fleet, that's not attractive to many people who did not sort of get pushed into procurement or who actually did not get found by procurement. So that the career choice people in procurement, they want something else. So what we can offer them now is, with our capability focused approach, is many, many different career journeys. And as we are a more flexible, agile organization and not necessarily operating in our chapters, not at all. We actually take our passports and do projects left, right, and center. The experience and the learning they can have is so far greater that this is becoming a very attractive function from a learning and career perspective. And just this ambition that we articulated and people starting to believe in it, I think supported our journey and our change management significantly. And yes, we invested in training, but no core procurement training. We invested in lots of sort of business and more consulting, maybe focused training. But ultimately, experience matters, and we give people a lot of good experience, and they talk about it, they see it, and they see the impact we have, and some of the projects we are doing now, and they believe in it.
And is that what you hire for? You hire for those non-traditional procurement skills. over the traditional procurement skill set?
Yeah, I think we really believe we have great people and great talent with amazing capability, and it's for us and the people to find the right home, and even a temporary home like a project or a squad, as we call it, or a longer term assignment or something. I think that dialogue is important. And we definitely hire more for capability. We hire more for, hey, are you a good fit to us, to the culture, to what we want to achieve? And sort of the content will come through learning and experience.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of different places that I could go with follow-ups, but I'm just going to ask one more follow-up, then I want to just switch gears before we wrap up into one different topic area. But kind of to wrap up, as you talk about, fundamental to your model is the alignment with business. And actually something you said earlier, which was very interesting, alignment with shareholders and, kind of beyond stakeholders, if you will, of which obviously stakeholders play a role in that. But how do you, for example, through governance, make sure that you're always on track, and that you're course correcting as the needs of the business change, as opposed to, we know what the business wanted at the start of the year, and therefore we're all focused on that. And, that's really a dangerous place to be when business needs change and you don't adapt quickly enough.
I think there is one fundamental principle that drives us, is that we want and need the business to like what we do and want to work with us. Mm-hmm. I think many procurement organizations that I've been part of through consulting engagements or otherwise, we keep on pushing. We keep pushing the policy, through the system, super hard to use and like one-way streets. So turn this around, think differently, right? Business first, because once they like you, they will use you and you can start to shape. A couple of other very important principles for us is through our customer excellence business partnering organization, we are deeply involved in decision making. Mm-hmm. And not only us, but procurement and finance partner with business leaders to understand what's coming, how finance and procurement can contribute to their outcomes. And we have a number of sort of governance bodies or decision-making bodies in place where we can not only bring ideas, but we also hear from the business very early on what they need. So there's a lot of alignment and integration of procurement into the wider organization, which is super critical. Also, I think we are considered a much more strategic function than we used to be. So we are working with a number of executives, senior leaders across the organization who not only engage us when they need a contract or like, oh my God, I need to spend X million dollars or whatever, and therefore, procurement. So they actually engage us strategically at the beginning. So with that, I feel we hear much, much earlier than in the past what's happening. We are much closer to where the business is going and what they need from us. And it all is based on the reputational change that we've been through. From like the police with a horrible system that's just in my way, is super slow and just hunts savings for whoever, to actually someone who understands my purpose, my need, the value that I create, the outcomes I need, and has a continuum of services they can offer to drive success for both of us. So that was the most fundamental enabler for the great success that we have. It's the reputational change.
Absolutely. The perception of procurement is everything, isn't it? And and a lot of stakeholders have been through so many transformation journeys, whether it's within a single organization or whether it's across multiple organizations they've worked, where they've been given a new promise of procurement, and that promise is sometimes not delivered. So I think that having that front and center is, you can't succeed without it, without a real true focus on that. Now, I know it's coming up to time to wrap up. In fact, we're a little bit over, but I think this is a really interesting conversation with tons of insights for people to listen in on. You mentioned at the very beginning around kind of taking this bigger picture of not just focusing on things that were traditionally procurement, but how do we help the organization solve problems, take advantage of opportunities that may exist. And you referenced as an example being involved in sustainability and scope 3 as one example of that. Now, your role in helping the organization with these sustainability challenges, is that something that was born out of a procurement desire to be, to use that as a value lever for the organization, or is that the organization looking and saying, we're not sure, who we should look to help us think about sustainability initiatives?
Yes and no. So I think we were in a similar position as many other corporates and big companies, observing what's happening around us from a climate change evidence perspective.
Yep.
Also seeing legislation and laws and external pressure mounting and increasing, shareholders asking difficult questions, but we didn't know how to respond, what to do. I think we are a very sustainable company. Sustainability is ingrained in our DNA. We have been on a long and very successful journey to reduce our scope 1 and 2 emissions. But when it came to scope 3, which is 90+% of our overall emissions these days, in a large organization like this, we weren't necessarily organized yet at the time, so a couple of years ago. And that's when we decided, I think this is an opportunity for us. And it's one where we can show what we can do beyond the traditional scope. And with the opportunity to free up capacity and capability, we invested in sustainability, we invested in experts, and we started to lead the dialogue and work with senior executives and a lot of topic owners on scope 3 targets, on reduction roadmap and everything. And that's when I think procurement became the natural leader. And we sort of are the go-to point now. We've been given the mandate to drive this, and I think self-engineered to an extent now the place where all of this responsibility sits and the coordination. And it comes back to the reputation, to the senior leaders we spoke to. They believed in us. They thought, yes, with everything that you've done and delivered so far on the other pieces, we trust you can do this.
Yeah,
trust. We've been given all of this.
Word. Trust is so important. That you built with them through the other things that you've been working on.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because we see from a mid-sized company perspective, not a company the size of Roche, but sustainability and procurement roles are often coming together now as organizations are looking for ways to, you talked about legislation. I just recorded a podcast that's going to go out in the next couple of weeks around the report of 2,200 procurement and non-procurement execs that SAP hosted with The Economist. And the ESG adoption is entirely driven by regulatory requirements. So there's kind of this, while we know that it's the right thing to do from a brand and reputational perspective, it's regulations that's actually being the impetus that, well, we have no choice now. And then when organizations are looking, well, where do we need to put resources to address that? Then procurement, or even bringing together procurement and sustainability, is a key opportunity for us, I think, as an organization.
Agreed.
Patrick, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing some of your insights and experiences on the journey that Roche has been. I love what you're doing. It's things that we advocate procurement organizations think about. You talked about, let's make our stakeholders love us. I think that for procurement to be successful, we have to compel stakeholders to want to come back and work for us, or work with us and use us. It shouldn't be we're pushing ourselves on anybody. It should be that our services are in demand within the organization. And really, it sounds like you've really put that at the core of the transformation journey. So what I will do is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in our show notes for today's episodes, if anybody would like to reach out and connect with you directly. But one last time, Patrick, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. If this episode struck a chord with you, please do send it to somebody. We grow here at Art of Procurement through word of mouth, and that would be really appreciated. You can also support us by giving us a thumbs up, a star rating, or a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Since 2015, we've built the world's largest free resource for procurement professionals looking to elevate their impact. Our resources span podcasts like this, videos, blog posts, papers, and events. To join us on the inside and to ensure you never miss an episode, a webinar, an event, or a post, please do subscribe to our weekly newsletter, This Week in Procurement. You can do that at artofprocurement.com/subscribe. That's artofprocurement.com/subscribe. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.